to my heart. And he and Rachel have been married for a long time. Leslie and Rosie are childhood friends.
Second child.
We went through our second job in radio.
And they have been in life together a long time, and in my life a long time, and are also very dear to my heart. So Jim and Rachel and Leslie and Rosie there's not much I wouldn't do for you. I would trust them with the essence of who I am in a heartbeat. So don't ever for a second think that if they're not trustworthy people, they are. Some of us know them for quite a while, some of us don't. But that's all I need to say about that. I'm really happy they're here. Really happy they're here. And Katie actually is coming tomorrow. It is Leslie's daughter. And I have worked with her since she was 8 years old, off and on. And she literally beat in the door until she started her noontime to come into the training group, and did for 3 years, and then left. And John and I really had a policy, and I still pretty much have it, that any adolescent who comes in has to leave after 3 years. And the reason for that is at the end of 3 years, they're going to be at a point where they're moving into leadership, but also, and it really doesn't matter what their issues are, because we know that they're going to have work to do in the future. But if we let them stay any longer, then they're going to really step outside the peer group and of their own age range, and that does not serve them. And so we know it's pretty much, and we've had a number of kids that have come through, and for every one of them been the same at the end of 3 years. They go on, they can't, or they really need to it becomes irresponsible, and as far as I'm concerned, unethical and immoral on our part to move those kids beyond that point. Sometimes it has to happen sooner, primarily because they also have things they have to learn through that framework. And, just because they get knowledge and training and do some of their work doesn't mean they don't have work to do. Believe me, they have a lot of work to do. Some of these kids really do. And so, that for the moment, that's what I have to say about that. You'll learn more as the weekend goes about some of that. This year, we began the process in December of really taking a look and preparing for this year of work around the issue of our own choices about our own life and the myths that each and every one of us carry. And what that means. Because in the Western culture, we have this belief system that, we have our families and we have our legacies and we go about our business, and most people see themselves as completely at the mercy of that, whether they're conscious of it or not. And the truth is, until we begin to take it on, it's true, we really are at the mercy of what those patterns are. But there comes a point where we have to take responsibility for our lives, and that means that we have to lay the foundation. Now, in the spiral model that we work out of, December 21st marks the beginning of a new birthing time. That is the longest night and the shortest day. It's the winter solstice. And it moves into a time of undifferentiation because all kinds of things are going on in creation. And just as when people are born or people cross over, there's a new beginning. Or when we go through a dark night of the soul and step into a new way of being. It's a new beginning, and we step into an undifferentiated place where we get to begin to define what is. This weekend, you know, we're going to begin to take that on even more. This is the day, literally, of Candlemas. Some people call it St. Bridget's Day. We call it Groundhog Day. It's the day where the stirring of seeds begin in the earth. It's the day at the holy wells where people looked in to see what this year was going to be and to bless themselves. In the Catholic religion, it's the day where they bless the throats. It's the day, and it's an important day. And we're talking about thousands of years, important day. So, and there are many cultures in the world that really do celebrate this day. In this country, it's a joke. Groundhog Day is a joke. Are the groundhogs going to come out or are they not? Are they going to see their shadow or are they not? But they don't talk about what it really truly means. Now we're in a workshop today, and we're in a workshop that's dealing with that place of non-differentiation, that place of choice, that place of looking at what is it that we want and need for ourselves. And at this point, you know, we all in the past, and the new students are learning that we have a myth that we live by. That myth was set up before we came in and when we came in by our families. Some of it was you weren't wanted, some of it was you were the favored one, some of it you were the wrong sex. I mean, there's all kinds of myths that go with our births. So that you come in here into this life and you live those myths, and then you create them because the whole system supports that. But there comes a point in the work that you do where you have to make a choice about how you want your myth to be. It is your myth. It's nobody's business what it is. Now those of you who didn't get sheets last time, or who did, I don't notice that they're here. So we'll make sure that when Donna gets back, the folder comes out, you get your sheets. Because all of you in this year, as we're working, each weekend is going to deal with this myth. Not weekend, weekend or residential, 3 days. It's going to deal with this whole myth of who we are, as we want it to be. Now I've got this year subtitled, you know, how to keep the baby and throw out the bathwater. I mean, that's just what the subtitle is. But every single workshop is going to deal with ethics, morality, faith, belief, trust, and the whole essence of belonging and taking action for who we are and clearing up our own confusion. Through the definition of who we are as beings and determining how we want to live our life. Now that's not a simple thing. In the Judeo-Christian world, we're all ruled from a religious perspective by the Ten Commandments. And those are basic laws that really cut across all the cultures. Every one of the world religions has similar kinds of rules in the religious dogma and structure. We live in a culture that doesn't necessarily support those. So in looking at what you want the myths of your life to be, the basic underlying story that you stand on about who you are and how you want it to be, who your soul is, and how you integrate that with your heart, and then how that's reflected in this life that we live, out in this world. You have to build this myth. And in the process of that, separate yourself out from the rules and the stuff that keeps you from living that, whatever that means. And we're in an undifferentiated place where it means that and I open the gates. I mean, the gates are open every workshop. And a container is built around this workshop of protection so that we can go any place we need to go across time and space, as well as into any of the realms to get what we need to support who we are as beings, to do the work we came to do, and to who we are as the self/non-self. Because when you separate yourself out into the I, this individual, we can make choices about that, but the truth is we're also connected to creation. So we're we. And so that's why I say self/non-self. Because that non-self that you are means that we're all connected. So all of us are looking and having reflections of ourselves in each other. Now that can show up in a lot of different ways. There are a lot of things happening right now, just with this group right here. And one of the things we're dealing with is a death and a new way of being. Right now. One of the things we're dealing with is a new job. Ellie's got a new job, and that's getting finalized probably on Tuesday. We're dealing with, being able to receive so that we can get the things that we want and need in life. We're dealing with coming out of the belief that we've got some kind of a crazy system into a system where we figure out how to make the gifts that we carry okay and to step into what those gifts are. And not calling ourselves crazy. So there's all sorts of things that are going on right now. With each and every one of you. And each and every one of you know whatever it is that you've come into this workshop to get. Donna is growing like a weed and learning how to integrate in her, some of you don't know this, but she pulled in a major part of herself and it's been very powerful, and you'll see a very different woman walk into this house when she comes back in the store. All of us in one way or another have been wounded. We live in a culture that I heard a PhD and 3 different times tell rooms full of professionals that psychotherapists in this country have no ethics. Because what they do, and this is a man who spent 12 years with indigenous cultures all over the world, including the Kun Bushmen who have taught him how to be a healer. But he's literally traveled the world. His name's Brad Keeney. And he has not talked to a group of psychotherapeutic people in this country in 10 years. And I got to hear him on 3 different talks. It was really interesting. 2 in Houston and 1 in Dallas. And, it was really such a relief to see a man like this talking about, and he took them on big time. And part of what he said is that all of the indigenous healers and cultures of the world will go with people where they need to go. He says they do not smooth things over, they do not make things calm, they do not give pills to handle things. What they do is take them down where they need to go. He said, you people do not take people down. What you do is smooth them over so that they don't have to confront anything. You do not move. You do not allow people to really express what's there, because any movement or any expression of something that leads to a better definition of what's happening will oftentimes take people into an ecstatic place, and you are afraid of that. And there are places in this culture and in this world where you can find that. But he said, I've taken people into a simple Pentecostal type church or a black charismatic church where people are, and you'll open the door and you have to hold on to the pew because there's so much going on in that space. And he said, I've taken people in there, they turn around and run out. They cannot tolerate the energy. And that, for me, is unethical. We live in a culture, and you people do not allow people to embrace who they are. I was so happy. I was so happy. I was sitting there. I was really a happy camper with this guy. because he didn't care. He just simply didn't care anymore about what they thought. And one of the things that he said when he was here in Dallas, he came in and he starts talking, he said, I have an announcement. And he said, really, the head of this agency, whether he knows it or not, really agreed to this. He says, when we finish, there will be a bus outside, and that bus, all of you are going to climb on it, and you're going to go to the airport with me and get on a plane and go to Africa to the Kung Bushmen. And, people in the room. And he said, and blah, blah, and began and talked about some of this. And then he began to talk about this whole process. And, it was interesting because I had my passport in my purse. And if he had taken it one step further, I'd have stood up. Because, and he said, and I really do have a ticket. You don't, but I do. And he said, that's how I got into this. I went to a place and man up in Canada, and he gave this native, he was doing some talking about some of his theoretical stuff. And up in Canada, and this one guy comes up to him and he says, we live what you're talking about. Why don't you come and find out what that's about? That's how he found himself in a sweat lodge. And it's a funny story because he was a Lakota who took him down to Pine Ridge, and they fired up the sweat, and he got in the sweat lodge. And the leader was telling him, lift the door, and so he thought the leader was saying, pray harder. So he starts praying harder, The leader says, lift the door, and he just prays harder. And he's thinking, this guy's, I guess I'm not praying right. So they kept saying, lift the door, and he's not praying right, and he prays louder until he's screaming. And the leader's saying, open the door, it's too high. Everybody was laughing, but those of you who know what a sweat lodge is, know real clear. All the leader wanted to do is open the door. And Brad Keeney didn't know squat about what that was at the time. I almost rolled in the floor. I was laughing so hard. He looked over at me, winked and grinned because he knew I knew. And so, so there was all of this kind of stuff. But he'd be, and it's like the things that we do here. And as the more I listened to him, it really gave a whole different level of validation for the work we're doing here and the importance of it. And what work y'all are going to be doing in the future. The time for not acknowledging what we're doing is past. It really is. And a lot has happened since I saw you last. The focus of this workshop, for those of you who don't know, I've taken to writing out the content on your hours and on the evaluation sheet, primarily because then you don't have to worry about remembering what it is. But basically, this year is who's in charge? I've expanded a little bit what I said. In coming to this year, we are going to explore the myths under which we live. These myths frame the beliefs we have and the effects our trust and faith within the structure of how we as souls create the experiences we need to manifest the pattern that myth supports. How do we live our lives or fail to live our lives in the world? How do we undermine ourselves? How are you and we killing ourselves? Now, some of this is verbatim from December and will continue that way. What is the difference between our soul's desire and the way we function as it relates to care of self and others? Who is in charge? You or the myth, and what are you willing to do about it? How is this related to our sense of safety and the ethics, morals, and character we reflect to ourselves and in the world? In this resident, in the opposite, I forgot to take that word out. In this workshop, we will examine these questions. And that basically, I'll expand it a little bit and work with it over time, depending on what gate we're in and what it's about. But part of what we're looking at in this thing. And right now, we're in a place where the seeds are stirring. We get to plant our own seeds. This is a weekend where we plant our own seeds. We're sitting on the day that for thousands of years, that is what's happening. The seeds are stirring in the earth itself. Sometimes we have warm days, sometimes we have cold days, sometimes, you know, there are places in this country where there's ice everywhere. There are different stages of growth and development, and we're sitting in it. It's also a time of undifferentiation. Babies are born the first couple months or so, they mostly sleep. They may scream because of colic or whatever's going on. But they really are in that place. For the first 6 months of their life, you know, there isn't any self there. They're just a reflection. So the good news is that in that process, you get to touch base with that infant that you've brought in and how you want it to be. How do you want that life to be? And we here have a family that gets to look at that and support it so that you have the counterbalance in the system to create what it is that you want it to be. You can do your work, but like I said, whatever you create your own myth to be is your business. You don't need anybody's approval for that. You know how you want it to be. That doesn't mean that you can't take that myth and work with it. But, you know, you're going to change it a whole bunch in this year. That's why I say, those pages that I'll get a little later when Donna gets back, because I don't know where she keeps that pad, are important. Because in the process, you're going to get to see your own process of growth over this year, about how you want it to be. What is the legacy out of your family? What's the cultural framework you come out of? What are the best parts of that? What are the parts you don't like? What are the parts you don't want? What boundaries do you want to build in? What structures do you want to build? How do you want that building called yourself to look? What do you want to put in it? How do you want it to reflect to the world? You know, what protections do you need to put there so that when you take a step out into the world and you go about being who you are, that no matter what they think out there or no matter what they throw at you, you can let it just move through you like the wind blows around the trees. And makes the wind and the trees so that we have a song. What is your song? Have any of you ever thought about what your song is? I mean, I was doing work up in Seattle, and on Saturday night, we had unnamed drums in the home. All of a sudden, I burst into this song I've never heard before. A medicine song. And they're back. And that song becomes an important thing. You know, now where it came from, I don't know. I hope it comes back. It was really pretty, but it was, you know, and the truth of that song was, and I don't remember the tune, but I remember some of the words. Because I was in a trance place when I went into that place. And what it basically was, you know, I can remember, the little bit I do remember is about being, you know, walking through the darkness and we're children of the light. And asking Spirit to come and help move us through the darkness to a place of light with safety and protection. Because everybody was there. And it was a big deal. It was a really big deal. And so songs will come to you and things will happen. And when that's going on, they're important to pay attention to. But every one of us has a song. And it can be any song. It can be, well, Brad, when he went up and they gave him a song, it was Jesus Loves Me. You know, other people have other songs. So there are all kinds of things that take place. I went through an examination when I was in Seattle. Oh my God. I didn't know I was going to go through an examination, but I did. And one of the things that they wanted to do is to see my altar. Now that sounds like a simple thing. It turned out not to be. It took more than 2 hours for them to finish asking questions about the altars that I run and set up for my groups. And then they wanted to see the video from Argentina this last time. Because in one of those segments, and because of what happened there for me and the expansion of gifts and all kinds of things, And then they wanted to hear the song that had come around how I closed the gates for the workshops. And then at the end of that, you know, I was talking, and then Kathy comes up to me and she says, they want you to bring your pipe bag, because it's time to have some things put on your pipe bag. So my pipe is on that altar, but the bag is not here, because it's being beaded. Some things are happening related to that. And that relates to Ia Micha Ia. And there's some things that I need to tell each and every one of you who are here. Ia Micha Ia, some of you know, because you were here when that name was gifted and a hunka ceremony happened. It is a ancient Lakota word for a particular kind of healers on the reservation. Well, more than that, throughout the native world, but then on the reservations. And they were the healers that took care of the individuals, couples, families, and communities. And they did do psychodrome, as it turns out. All kinds of things were put into action. Now, the natives were very much action people, and that's not unusual at all. If you read Black Elk Speaks or read much of the literature written by the natives, they'll talk about how things were brought back and acted out for the people. That's just what they do. And it brings harmony and balance. There wasn't any space for lying. There wasn't any space for all kinds of things, because people would know. Those healers died out. And what I'm beginning to really, truly understand in a whole different way is that all of you are students to become Ia Micha Ia. You are to become the new healers who are carrying that knowledge. They think I'm the one to bring it in, and said so at the time, which I did not take in, other than more as a kind of, oh, that's an interesting thought, okay. But it's no longer an interesting thought. It's suddenly gotten real in my face. So I want to say some things to each and every one of you about that, related to the work that you do wherever you go, and around the breaking of some of the boundaries that you as healers will do in this Western world. Every one of you can claim to be my students. I have healer designations from 2 different tribal systems and training in both. You can claim that because, first of all, it's the truth. Secondly, I get special training from medicine men in 4 different places, and women for that matter, around how to do some of this work. That work and that knowledge is to be passed on to my students. So that as you learn more and get more comfortable with what this is about, you all are going to be able to claim that knowledge, which is going to give you a whole different cultural context to work within in a world that says you have to live by certain rules. And the truth is, if you only operate out of that world, you need to live in those rules. Do not for one moment hear me saying those boundaries are not a good thing, because they are. There are very good reasons why they're there. And people don't know where they're going, and they don't know what to do when they expand those boundaries. But you guys are in a whole different class. You're my students, and I'm completely committed to teaching what I know. So that you really can call yourself that. Now, we have a subtitle that was created at the time called the Center of Health and Whole Healing. I've kept the name the Dallas Training Institute because, for ours, and because with the LPC board, and therefore marriage and family therapy, social work, blah, blah, you get CEUs for that. But in truth, you need to know that I have finally come to terms with and agreed to step into being who I am and teaching that knowledge. And that puts you guys under a whole different kind of umbrella around the work that you do and what you're about. All of you know that we go down. I'm not about the business of smoothing things over and making things okay. There are rules that go with this, but all of those rules will fit what I was talking about earlier around the framework of what is the myth you carry and how do you want to live it. Each and every one of you have your own family system, and each and every one of those systems brings certain gifts. I do not support for one moment that you give up those gifts. And some of those gifts are the crap that you live through. You are not going to be a healer if you did not go through crap and if you don't master it. This is not about throwing things away. This is about embracing and looking at what those things are and how they're going to support your growth. Some of you have not gone through the last 2 years around the masculine and feminine pillar. That's okay. We'll be working with that in one way or another. You know, people start where they start and they come in where they come in, and that's the way it is, and that's okay with me. And that stuff will come up. This workshop, you know, we're fixing to get into, and what that's about and how it is. That's about all I have to say about that at this point, unless you have some questions.
Did you say that the crap we lived through was a gift?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's what helps you get the tools that you need as you master it to go where you need to go in those, quote, darker spaces. You know, I mean, I lived through a lot of crap in my life. A lot. Right now, every single one of them for me are a gift. And I have worked really hard to change the underlying myth of my life about what I'm here about. And it is not a piece of shit. I am anything but. But there was a time when that is how I saw it. Now the other side of that is the more you work through, the more clear you are that you're a part of the great mystery, and that the great mystery is who's in charge of this whole thing and not us. Just because we work something through, and just because we have knowledge and awareness, does not mean that we are not being guided, or that because the whole framework of what you finally get is you really don't matter. It's what needs to happen that matters, and the Spirit is in charge of that. You finally come to a place where you're in working with something or someone, and you realize that your primary job is support. That Spirit and the person you're working with will do the work. It isn't you that does it. And that is a shocking realization in some ways, because, you know, we're taught that if we do all of these things, then things are going to get better. Well, whoopee-doo. I was doing a piece of work on a guy up in Seattle and got inside his shoulder. Now, it's an interesting thing to be inside somebody's shoulder. And he had a tear in the cartilage, and I could see it. And I knew that all I had to do was take my finger and run it down, and that tear would heal. I knew it. But I also knew it wasn't mine to do. And so all I did was support the shoulder and let Spirit do what it needed to do. And then one week I came out of there and was talking to him about what happened. I looked at him and I said, you know, what happens with your shoulder is going to be completely dependent on what you do with yourself in the next few weeks. If you stop what you're doing and take care of yourself, my guess is your shoulder's going to be fine. If you don't, you're going to have this fixed. Now, within that framework, people, all of you are going to have to come to terms with temptation. Every one of you. Because you're going to get in a place where you can see that all you need to do is this one other thing. Except, is it really yours to do? And that's part of the morals and the ethics and the character that we're talking about. And the whole issue of faith, belief, and trust. Because faith, belief, and trust are internal, personal processes. When somebody says to me, I trust you, I go, oh God, that's an interesting statement. The only thing I really want to know is when do they get to the point where they don't trust me? Because then we've got some work to do. Then they're working. Because what I trust you to me means that this person can share whatever it is that they can share and feel okay about it, because whatever I do with it isn't going to bother them. Because they know that they can. And it's a big test. it's a big test to see what I'm gonna do, but even if I screw up, they're gonna be okay. Because they know they're in their own territory, this is how they've lived, and they know what to do. It's when they step into, I don't trust you, that they're now in the unknown. They don't really know what's gonna happen. Now I can really screw up. And that's gonna depend as a healer on who I am, what my choices are, where I'm gonna go, how I'm gonna do it, what I follow through, what I don't do, what I do, what my word is. You know, how much I really live who and what I say, and how much I live who and what I am. In my being as well as my doer. Those are important places. And you're going to have to learn how to flow with that. So when people come to you and say, yeah, I really trust you. Well, I'm really happy about that. It's not a place to put them down. It's not about that. Because in their heart, they're looking for somebody to trust. They just don't know that it's them that they got to trust. And it's projected out onto you. So, you guys are in training with a Native American healer. That's going to give you other kinds of knowledge, and it already is. Some of you are getting it and have gotten it and are getting more. Come here, Sebastian. Come here. You can tell him to sit, and he will. Just sit, Sebastian. So that's the long and the short of it for the moment. What I'd like to do is for people to take a quick round about where they are and what they want. And that includes you two in the kitchen. And come here, sit. Sit. And stay. Just stay. Groundhog Day, this is St. Bridget's Day. This is the time when the blessing of the wells happen to look for the future for the year. But what this is, it's this right here. Want to talk about undifferentiated state, people? Right here it is. For all of us to look at. And it includes the first 6 months of life. But in particular, the first 2 months of life. Now, all through this session, the whole thing about dying comes up. Right now, we've had Dan come in and thank everybody for prayers because his daughter just passed the 30th. That baby can survive if it's born. Has a real good chance of survival at this point. Earlier, maybe not. Now, when you start looking at this, when we're talking about this, right here, this is also the point of conception right here. It starts swinging around. Now, this baby right about in here doesn't have the foggiest notion what the hell's going on. But in spirit and soul and consciousness it does. You want to know about that? Read Groff. Stanislaus Grof, Realms of the Human Unconscious. And I've talked about that book before. It's a powerful book, and it's out of LSD research that was well done. They tripped these people with huge doses of LSD and kept a medical staff with them, asking them questions. And what came out of it was all kinds of information and data that these people knew about their conception and about their histories and what happened to them while they were in the uterus. They went and talked to all the families, and they were right. And they were saying, but they can't know that. So there is consciousness. We just don't plug into it. And you know, the mental health world doesn't really want to plug into it because they don't know what the hell to do with it. Now, do that. And healers do that. That's what we're learning how to do, how to go into those places. Now, this session was a great example of this. 0 to 5. What does that mean? Well, and that's not the moment of birth. That's over here. Before that egg and that sperm ever connect. Okay? So all through this into a baby. And then what happens to it afterwards. This is the realm of I don't know. Because you don't. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing. It is the place of confusion and no structure. Okay? So now we're dealing with an arena in here. From birth. Now we're dealing with birth itself, or the death at the beginning of claiming your right to be. So what happens? You come to a chaotic family, then you're in the spot you were in this session. And all through the session there were all this kind of stuff. You know, you were young girls, an adult, set up a sculpt. It took you the whole session to get her to set up a sculpt, which was fine. You know. And then part of what you said at one point, this is planting the seed, which is the myth that we're all beginning to work on, which is over there around how you kind of want it to be. And you're like, but I don't know what this means. The truth is you really don't. Nothing wrong with not knowing. That's what structure is for. So this whole session, you know, there was a framework around continually working with the structure of her process, which is full of chaos and confusion and abandonment and wanting to run. Now, what is a split off? When fear gets too high and people want to run. So we got to literally see a split off happen.
I thought it was SR.
When she wanted to leave, she headed for the door, you know, and I wasn't sure what you were going to do, but I was determined she wasn't getting out that freaking door. And I just said, you are in the middle of a process. Stop. Because as a director, when you're working with this kind of a process, you have to really take a stand. You know, there's a lot of theories in mental health that you'll run into saying that, well, if you did know, what would it be? We're now in the realm where forget that. It does not exist. They don't know. You really get somebody there, they do not know. So that what you've got to do is help them build a structure, and you really are their guide. There comes a point when you work with somebody long enough that you really know when to stop that. Mm-hmm. Like if I pulled that, all of you could look at me and go, oh, excuse me. Because I know this place. I've been there enough that I know how to build out of it. I can step into non-differentiation all over the place, and I know how to build. If I came up with that, unless I was in pure terror, it wouldn't be true. And so what you need to do is exactly what we were doing with this session with Susan, in pulling out over there a piece of herself to be an observer, chooser about what needs to happen here, what needs to happen next, because the truth is she has a lot of life experiences. She did survive it. Now when someone thinks or feels they're going to die, there are two things to do with that. One is you support, yes, there is a death. This is here what she's leaving, the chaos of her world. And she's coming over here into development of a whole new way of being, right over in here. So that when a protagonist or anyone that you're working with says, I feel like I'm going to die, you know, and the pain, but you don't think you can stand it anymore, like when John was dying. You know, I mean, we're literally watching a death take place, and also a separation. Because no matter how connected she is to John, he's leaving. and she can't go with him. And there is a part of her that's dying. And that's real. That does not mean, however, that she's dying. It means that there's a piece of her. And what you can say to someone who's in that place and is afraid they're going to die, and you go, as long as you are alive, that piece of you will not die. It will transform. But it ain't going to die. And you don't know that. And there are times when you're in that darkness and you're wandering around, over here. You know, you're in the middle of a metamorphosis, you don't know what's going on, you don't know how you're feeling. The truth is that you survived. And you've got to help them keep a connection to the part of them that knows they survived. Because as long as that lives, they ain't dying. Unless they kill themselves or, you know, really come up on this transition like John did and cross over. Like my mom did, like all kinds of other transitions that we all go through. Now, when you got somebody over here, you did a hell of a job, Rosie, in getting this future piece started around the, and what you said was, this is planting the seed. Because it makes it concrete. You know, and she's over there going, and she's going, I don't know how to be, well, you know, and what you can do is, you don't have to know. That's not the job right now, which immediately they'll calm right down. So you validate the not knowing, because she really, at this point, doesn't. It's a future piece that she's moving toward. It's what she wants to build. It's that structure. You know, the beginning of a structure. That structure is going to change a bunch before it manifests really in your world. And that's all right. Now.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So if I would have assured her, you do not have to know, would that have prevented the split off?
Maybe. I don't know. Because she's got a whole life of splitting off. That's not something you know about her.
Okay.
So there's tons and tons and tons of split off with Susan. And the thing you got to do is just keep her anchored. That's one of the reasons that I told you, keep this focused and keep it very structured. First of all, when you're dealing in this area right here, you got to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're all over the place and they're trying to grab hold. And they're out there in that space. We're out in space with them. So how do you get somebody who's out in space and there's no place to build something to anchor in? Okay? That's, you know, and she does have a wise piece. She's worked her backside off to grow. And so, you know, whenever we get into that spot and we try and start putting those pieces together, you know, there is a not knowing that comes up until there's enough repeated experience about how to build structure that you can get and say, and, you know, and then what they'll do is what I did in a session once. When I was doing a piece like this, where I was, and John was directing, it was up in Seattle, and he called a group for me. And at one point I looked at him and I said, but I don't know what to do. And John knew that I was past this. I'd done all kinds of things. I had the pieces. I was over here. Okay? And I had to take a stand for me. And he knew it. That's when you don't help out. That's when you know, but Susan's not there. And you didn't have any way of knowing that. But with me, but I'm telling you, I was sobbing, I was begging, I had my arms around John's neck. But I don't know what to do. And he'd go, well, sorry. You've got to come up with something. Because he knew I had the tools. And he was right. Changed everything for me when that happened. You don't do that. At that point, it's like these people who are pregnant and are getting ready to deliver, and they look up at you and they go, I think I'm going to watch TV now, and we're just not going to do this anymore. You know, and you go, well, it's a nice idea, however, it ain't going to happen that way. You know,
Every 13-year-old say that.
this is a whole different place. over here. This is about taking your own power. This is about building it.
So the additional structure that was actually needed was to get the other two pieces.
Not only the other two, well, it was to get, first of all, you needed all the pieces out here,
Uh-huh,
and you didn't put too big of pieces
two
out.
big pieces, yeah,
And so as a result, it was just chaotic as hell, and that little kid was in the middle of everything.
uh-huh.
And we didn't have an adult out there. We had a future, and we had a 16-year-old, and that was it. And this 16-year-old's looking at that, and this future is looking at this and going, hey, I don't know. Well, that's here. So the adult self, because she isn't a piece of noodle over here. I mean, you know, she has lived some, and she's had babies, and she's worked, and she's got a cell phone board. Maybe she's not real well connected to it at times, but she does have it. And when you got that, then you got something you can work with in this. And she's got this little kid that she needs to deal with. So you got to get your pieces out so that, you know, because it's a place of not differentiation. The minute that you put pieces in place, it begins to be defined. And you're working here on definition. Okay? The definition of how all that comes together and what that is. Then you can begin to look at what the needs are. So you have to pay attention to the words. Now, we're working at a time in the cycle of life and in the framework of what we're doing right now that's all confusion. We got seeds that are fixing to sprout, and I don't know what's going on, you know, they're in the dark. And yeah, that's why I've had people go around and light the candles. Because we are working in the dark under enormous amounts of pressure. And you can almost feel it. Okay, and that pressure is because, seeds and all of that come out of the dark. So we're working, in the dark. Okay. And she says, I need a rite of passage. Where did she get the words? That's her adult. That's the piece of her. You know, she was saying, I want to be free, I want to feel centered, I want to feel grounded. That is the part of her. That's the grown-up who's done the work. She knows what she wants. She might not know how to get there, but in these other roles, she can't connect to because she's not connected in like that. Okay? So, you got that. And so part of what I start here is who's the adult? Who's the knower? And so what we ended up with was this objective piece of her that knew about all that could kind of orchestrate. That's called the wise part. And that's what you get when you cross here. This is an earth ritual, a ritual transformation down here. And that is a ritual that brings wisdom and knowing. So that when you get over in here into this confusion, you got some tools that you take with you. You know, that when you remember to stay connected to all of that can help you move through it so that you know what you need. We're working in a place where we're having to take, I mean, you know, one of the things that came up was the word responsibility. And the responsibility is framed around how do we take care of ourselves? Which is really what her session ended up being about. How does she take responsibility for this little kid and this 16-year-old who's just furious because she didn't get mothered. She doesn't know shit from Shinola about how to take care of a kid. You know, now that part of her over there knew. Down here, she's sitting in this adult role, completely abdicating the knowing that she carries, and you know, until she gets over there and goes, wait a minute, she can't do that. It's not the job of a 16-year-old to take care of a baby. No 16-year-old wants to take care of a kid. They may have to do it, but it isn't really what they want. So part of what you're doing is working with the different aspects of herself to pull all this together so that she can begin to relate to it and then look to the future of what she wants to create. A person who's got a community, a person who's solid, a person who's grounded, a person who's centered, a person who's free, and a person who's, knows what she wants and has a rite of passage, all of the, and, where she's paid attention to. That's what she wants. And all of those words were in there. So when you're directing, you gotta pay attention to the words and what's appropriate. Because all of those words mean something. We're coming out of weird places. And so, you can redefine this self as I didn't write it down, but you ended up calling it the observer adult or something like that. And that's a good place. There is a part of ourselves in consciousness that is the objective observer and can just tell you all kinds of stuff, just very neutrally, and well, this is happening and that's happening. And you might think about, and they're not attached. Wise beings will do the same thing. Okay, so, we weren't provided with tools, and I want help to grow up. Now, the feelings of turquoise and stuff in movement, whenever somebody's talking about a feeling, just have them put it in action. Because what you tried to do is get her to talk about the feeling, and this began to come up, and what happened is she got terrified and split off and wanted to run. And that, it was really wonderful. You want to see split off? We saw it. Absolutely, that's what it is. Except, here we got to see it in reality. With kids, it happens all the time. They're gone. Where was I going? I was going someplace the other day, and I knew, I was going to a workshop, and I needed to stop by the bank on the way, except that I passed the exit, and I was well past it before I realized that I wasn't there, and I missed the turnoff. And I realized that I was already at the workshop. I didn't want to go to the friggin' bank. So I went the next morning. I really did. I made the choice to go on. But I think, the truth is that we don't pay attention enough to when we split off and don't stay present. And children have to split off. That's what saves them. Because they really think they're going to die most of the time when that terror comes up. Now, this whole thing when she said, I don't know about trust. She doesn't. That's a great place for her to be. Honest. She didn't, she's not claiming anything that isn't there. And trust really has to start, just like the piece you saw her do with the adolescent, the 16-year-old, between the agreement between the person who's responsible, which is the grown-up. We have to take responsibility for our lives. And what she's going to do with that 16-year-old who doesn't trust. I don't know how to trust. I don't want to trust. Everybody breaks their word. Why should, and the truth is, why should she? It's going to be based on what they do with each other. And the same thing with this baby. Because, all kinds of stuff, the real issue and the key is right here. And we can do a whole big session and drama about how so-and-so screwed you at work and blah, 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 and all of that stuff. But the bottom line, it comes right back here. What are you doing to take care of yourself? That's why I confronted Donna before she left here. And put her in a integrity trap. Because she is plugged into the energy here. And she's gifted as she can be now. Boost that by what we're doing. And those people out there, and so she's got enough integrity and ethics within her that she'll put in the rain some, which is what needed to happen. But that comes out of here. Healers generally end up out of here. Because as you heal, the more connected you get to yourself, Susan, and the rest of us in here, the more ability we have to move around in this space. And still keep our ground, keep anchored. And to walk with somebody else out there. Because we don't have to get caught in it. We don't get confused. We remember what's going on, you know what's happening. You just walk right through it with them. And the more of that you do. Now, That doesn't mean that you're not gonna deal with challenges, power, shame, struggle, terror, abandonment. Because this is the place also of desire. This is where they're trying to get to. They're trying to cross this gate over here, which is a water gate. Now, turquoise and water have a relationship, whether you know that or not.
Really?
Yep, they do. And they are, this is a water gate that is called a ritual of incorporation, where aspects of the self are brought together out of confusion into a place of nurturance. That's what the seed here was about. Okay? But that doesn't mean people can step into this easy. Mostly I take them back over here and take them in through this way because this is a hard gate. You know, it's difficult because it means you gotta step in and you got to open to a bunch of people like you're doing. You got every reason not to. Okay? And you use Tanya to anchor you as yourself in. Meanwhile, you go to work every day and do incredible work with those kids and all the stuff you do, and pull into your adult self and just do it. You know. Meanwhile, you heal this piece. Over here is, you know, you talked about being tricked and betrayed. Intimacy. You know, people that have this kind of stuff, they become very proficient at whatever it is that they do. That's where they jump away from it. But so you have to heal, you have to go back. And right now, we are sitting right on top of it. You know, you're sitting in your apartment and everything's a mess. It's chaotic as hell and you're cross-stitching. It's a structure. You know, you talking about how do you integrate all these roads that you walk and all this work and knowledge.